So you have this web development company going on. You're heavy into the development side of things, the technology. Have you done any big sites? I mean, are you still into e-commerce?
We still love e-commerce. It will always be a staple of what we do. This year, we just released the site for LeBron James, so LeBronJames.com.
You did LeBron James.
We did. And
how long how long does that take?
Well, so we started with the I Promise School first. So one of our clients is Akron University or University of Akron. I always get it reversed. And of course, LeBron is very heavily invested in the city of Akron and education.
Did you meet LeBron?
No, of all the things we've done, that's the only thing that's disappointed me in this whole thing is I wanted to shake his hand and say thank you. Yeah. He's a cool guy who's done a lot for the city. It'd be nice just to say, hey, I appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe you still get that chance.
I might. There's a lot of time. But so they said, hey, who do you guys work with? And what platform do you use? And they said, oh, we'll talk to Etho. They're the biggest implementer in the country for this thing now. And we were. Like the platform that we do a lot of work with, we're the largest implementer in North America for. And we started when they were in infancy and we were in infancy and we grew together. And so they came to us and said, hey, we got this I Promise School that we're going to be starting. Here's the gist. And we had just hired our first full-time in-house graphic designer.
When? What time frame was this?
I want to say it would have been late 2017, 2018, early maybe.
Okay. So it's 2017. You get an opportunity. You've been working with University of Akron. They introduce you to I Promise School. Now you're starting development with them.
And we had 3 weeks. Oh, by the way, we had 3 weeks.
What was driving that?
Well, by the time that they selected us as the firm to do the work, there was so little time between when they wanted to announce the I Promise School and the time we had that we worked around the clock for 3 weeks and we hit a deadline for them. We got that site live. And it was primarily content and design. There was no coding and integration type work. But we had to set up the .cms platform. We had to get the site ready. We had to get all the graphics done. Everything had to be approved. All the text had to be done.
Was there a second phase to follow?
Oh, yeah.
So you had to have that in part of your design.
Absolutely, yeah. So there was a lot that had to happen really quick. And then after the launch, we kind of took a breather. Okay, for the next couple of years, what's your vision for the site? And let's get those on paper. And so, we're really more and more of a maintenance mode with the I Promise School as they continue to grow and do cool things. And then we focused on the LeBron James Foundation, which hadn't been updated in a decade. It was an old site built by the gentleman who does their marketing for them. He's full-time with them. And his background was doing some basic web design. And, as LeBron James' fame and fortune and everything else expanded, his ability to spend his time doing any of that stuff, vanished. And so I was fortunate that, he wanted to work with us. And those other two sites were just as much fun, obviously not under a time deadline. We got a lot of opportunity to perfect it and make sure that it meets the standards that we wanted to meet. And in fact, I like all three sites, but I think the LeBron James Foundation is probably one of the most beautiful sites we've ever done in 10 years.
Who would be the type of person you're working with on that? Like the LeBron Foundation, who's your go-to? Who's your contact? So you don't even give me a name, but I'm like functional role. Who is it?
There's a marketing manager who spends a lot of his time in between LeBron's different entities. So
it's one person that handles all of these entities. That's who you're working with.
Yeah, he's got a lot on his hands. He does a good job. He's local. He does a good job. He went to school with LeBron, has been with him ever since. And I'll say this too. Once we did the I Promise School site with them, and I got to spend a little bit of time with him and tour the school and talk to him outside of business. It was really impressive to me because you envision a lot of these players just hiring yes men or people whom want to make money or they like being associated with LeBron. But his heart was so amazing towards the kids and what they were trying to do in the city and the mission. For me, I feel like LeBron's probably the 1% of sports players in any sport who's doing what he's doing. But when you see the heart, he's like 0.01%. Like people just think of LeBron because they see the games and the commercials, but when you like hear what his heart is to fix in society and with children and with education, and like it's a real focus for him. You just don't hear about it a lot, right? Because he's famous. He's got 1,000 things you hear about LeBron for, but not that. And so for me, that was one of the things that really felt like, okay, we're in the right place with these guys. Like we could do something more than just build a site and make some money. Like we could have impact as well. And so for us, it became one of those things where, you know, in any way possible, when we can be helpful with their mission, we try to be, you know, because they're doing some cool things that we couldn't do without them. And
I would assume you would have to get pretty intimate with them. You got to get to know them so you can bring that into the site.
Absolutely, because humans are innately emotionally driven. We don't like to think of ourselves that way, but we make decisions based on emotion. When you're trying to get donors to donate towards a cause like I Promise, or to get involved with the foundation, you know, it's not about citing statistics. It's not about just telling people how cool you are, what you do. It's about evoking that emotion that says, you know, I felt like crying because what these guys were doing was so impactful to the people that are around me, that you feel like not being involved is a disjustice to yourself and to them. Mm-hmm. And you can do that with a properly ran marketing campaign and website. You can bring that emotion to the table so that you're drawn in and you feel like you have to get involved.
So I'm trying to envision Etho doing this, okay? And you get a section done or you get a piece done, and now you're going to share it with them. Was it like nerves and you're nervous and, hey, are we on the right page here? And did you have some unveiling, and how did all that kind of stuff work out?
The first two sites were great. I mean, blown away. In fact, the foundation, their advisory board at the foundation, a lot of them own other businesses in the area that you would probably know. And they were so impressed. They're like, we're using these guys when we do our redesign. And so I felt like those two sites were really smooth. The LeBronJames.com site, the first revision was an absolute horrendous blowout. No one liked it. I mean, it was, even I didn't like it, but it's what we had, you know? And so, you know, I felt like there was definitely...
So how do they tell you they don't like it?
Well, I'll tell you this.
And who tells you that? This marketing person you're working with?
Yeah, and there's some people on advisory boards that have input as well.
So kind of walk me through a little bit. How do they say, that isn't going to work?
Well, they're actually really polite about it. I mean, you know, Nick Lopez is who we work with a lot there. And, you know, Nick is very polite, but he doesn't mix his words, right? If he doesn't like something, he can just tell you, this is not the direction we need to go, guys. Scrap all this, but let's talk about where we should be going. Otherwise, the next revision is going to be just as far offline. And that doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
Sure.
So they came back and, we're embarking on redesigning all their stuff. And same thing, iteration number 1 was just terrible. It just, most people probably wouldn't have thought poorly about it, but we knew where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. And I didn't think it encompassed things really well. And so we scrapped revision number 1, and revision number 2 was out of the park, you know? So that's just a part of the process. Yeah. Nobody hits a home run every time they're at bat. The important part is that you have a process where everyone understands that up front.